I think people get great reward when you can help somebody else. I get more out of giving and being around the students than they even imagine. It's fun.
Kate, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome back to UConn.
Thank you.
You had been Husky for 45 years. So tell us about your journey, your involvement with UConn, and start with your time as a student.
Well, that's a long time ago. So I went to UConn during the 70s. So I was here 76 and graduated in 1980. I was born in Connecticut, grew up in Stratford, and was accepted in the school of business.
Beautiful. So with UConn business degree, you took your career into computer during the time when the technology was starting to become commonplace. So what part did you play in that computer revolution?
Well, I was lucky. I was very blessed. My older brother had gotten his degree at Southern Connecticut State College, and I was a senior at UConn and went home to visit family. And as I said, my dad was a teacher. A friend of his was a computer science teacher, and he had mortgaged his house and started one of the first computer stores down in Wilton, Connecticut. So I went home, my brother, introduced me to Apple computers, and at that time there was no Microsoft, it was CPM and other computers based on that, and he said, hey, we should do this. So my father educated us around finance. We had student loan money we never used, and we bought into the computer store. So my brother and I were entrepreneurs with Dr. O'Shea right out of college. And so that was my entree into the computer industry. And so I was recruited, and I went to work for Apple Computer up in Boston and took care of the computer stores throughout New England, and that started my career at Apple. So that was 1981.
Yeah, so you also worked for Cisco. So
Yeah.
What was it like working for Apple and Cisco during the time when technology became exploding and became the household name?
Yeah.
And you are on the top of two giant companies.
Yeah, again, I was very blessed. I spent 15 years at Apple. And honestly, Apple's vision and mission hasn't changed since the Apple II days. The idea that Steve started with and the early Apple team started with was one person, one computer. And at that time it was an Apple II. Today it's an iPhone. And the idea was that technology in the hands of an individual would empower them to be their best. And so I spent 15 years at Apple, with a bunch of very bright young people trying to change the world and put computing power in the hands of individuals. And it was a rocket ship. I started there, I think we were $70 million by the time I joined as a young man. By the time I left, it was $10 billion. So it was a rocket ship. And then I was recruited to Cisco, and that was very, not as early on, but it was similar, where they were the router that powered the internet. And so I was recruited to help John Chambers, their CEO, really explode Cisco to go from a router company to the leader in networking. And I joined, it was $2 billion. I left, it was $22 billion in 6 years. So we bought 70 companies and integrated those into Cisco, and we became the worldwide leader in networking for the internet. And as everybody knows, you could be on any device anywhere in the world now, and you're connected on the internet. So I had two terrific experiences.
So, and then after that, you started your own software company after Cisco.
Yeah, I left Cisco around 2002. I, at that time, had 2 children. My oldest was born here on the East Coast, but at 2 years old, we moved to California. So she grew up in California. And then my youngest was born in California. So they're 35 and 32 now. But I was traveling a lot with Apple. I ran the product group before Steve Jobs came back. So I was head of the consumer group, it was called, and it was a global position. And then when I went to Cisco, it was a worldwide position as well. So traveling, trying to raise children I had done my part. So I started a software company, yeah.
So when you reflect on your journey, you could see that you were a risk taker when you started a store and then when you started your own company. So can you talk more about the risk and are we ready for take the risk and how you rationalized your jump? Your father, you have family, and now you're starting business.
There's a difference between entrepreneurship in the idea of starting a business and entrepreneurial thinking. And sometimes I confuse those, other people confuse those, but entrepreneurial thinking I think is foundational in any business person in almost any occupation. So being able to enjoy the college experience is about learning how to learn. Being put into an environment where creativity, ideation, learning how to ideate, explore an idea, and see if there is value that can be created from that idea. And then learning if you can capture that value, that's entrepreneurial thinking, that process. It's much like the scientific method.
So you said something like students are here and we have 4 years that they really learn and explore. So why do you think some students are willing to take risk and some shy away from it?
I think life experiences shape people. And by the time a young person comes to university, they're 17, 18 years old, that experience is shaped by mostly their family. So the experiences of their parents, their siblings, their aunts, their uncles, their grandparents will shape what we call emotional intelligence. Your understanding of your own feelings, how to deal with fear, how to deal with uncertainty, when to be excited, how do you deal with those things. I think you can teach those things, but some people have a life experience and get a little head start. So they might be more receptive to taking risks because they've seen others deal with the emotion of the fear, the anxiety. And so that's part of what I hope the university would teach everybody is social intelligence and emotional intelligence, so that when you feel that fear, you're not overwhelmed or you don't explode with anger, or you don't know how to deal with that. We should be teaching everyone it's okay. It's normal, it's human to be anxious, to be fearful, and learn how to overcome that.
So during the height of your career, you reconnected with UConn. So tell me more, how did you circle back to UConn and what was that desire to come back?
So it's a funny story. I was at Cisco at the time, and I was, like I said, it was an explosive period of time, very, very busy. And I got a call from Rich Dino, and Rich was the associate dean of the School of Business at the time. It was a call out of the blue, and he was in California and wanted to meet, and I knew he wanted to, hopefully get a gift of some kind. And I said to him, Rich, I'd love to meet with you. I wanted to do something. My father had just passed away, and I actually wanted to do something out of respect for my dad and what he had done, for me and our family. So I said, Rich, I have a half-hour block. I'd love to go to lunch with you or go to dinner. I just can't but I have a half-hour block. Can you come in and can we meet? And so he comes in, and at the time at Cisco, we were trying to get rid of paper. We were selling networking equipment. We were trying to digitize everything, and Rich comes in with a binder and a bunch of brochures, and he sits down and he puts it on the table, and I looked at him, I said, Rich, this doesn't look good. I've been telling all my people we don't do brochures. Just put those away. And so, he was telling me about the university and what was happening at the university, and I wanted to make a gift. And long story short, I ended up making a gift that within the half hour to help fund a chair in my father's name for the Dean of the School of Business.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful story, and now we have, emotions you have.
Yeah.
I didn't meet your father, but just entering and knowing it's your father, it's a deep emotions, and you feel you honor the legacy and what he installed in you and who you are and what education meant for you. So that's really journey. And then you went the next step and you started the Innovation Quest. So can you tell us about that journey? You wanted to do more for UConn. It's not just gift and serving. You wanted to do more for students and what you believe. So
I did a lot of work with schools, and I served on the Cal Poly board and was an advisor there. And a friend of mine from Cisco started a program called Innovation Quest, and I helped him there. And he was a student back in the 70s. His senior project, he did well on, but he always felt like he wanted to do something with his senior project, and there was no mechanism to take his senior project and make a business out of it. So Innovation Quest really was born by my friend Carson Chen, and I helped him with that at Cal Poly. And it's a program that allows students to compete for prize money with their idea and their invention, and they're competing against other student teams. And it's open to the entire university, all students, undergrad, grad, PhD. With the idea that the second phase is you go from inventor to entrepreneur. So it's a competition. The winners are men, women, people of color, faith. It's just a reflection of humanity, and it's really rewarding to help people on their journey.
So why is it important for people in other non-business disciplines to get entrepreneurial experience?
I think it's foundational in life. You and I've talked about this, but if you go into any occupation, you're going to find that the world is competitive. I mean, whether you're a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, a farmer, a researcher. Researchers compete for research dollars. So you need to be able to creatively think, ideate, move your idea forward. You need to find the value in the idea, and then you need to capture that value. So CIE, creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship, is a process. It's a mindset to be able to compete and be your best in the world.
So your elder daughter is UConn graduate, proud Husky, proud Papa, I'm sure.
Yep.
So why did you encourage her to come to UConn? You lived at that time in California. You're, as a parents, we care so much about our children and their education. So what was the advice to her, and why UConn?
Well, you're a parent too. I didn't want to push, because if you say go do this, then your child never does what you tell them to go do, right? But my wife and I always provided, and still do, options and choices. And so with both my children, I took them on road shows of different campuses, and we just talked about the basics of, do you want to live in a city? Do you want to have a rural experience? Do you want to see something new and experience something new? Or are you more comfortable staying close to home? So both my children had different answers. My youngest went to Cal Poly, which I also served on their board, but she fell in love with that campus and stayed in California. My oldest came here. We traveled to Boston, Rhode Island. She knew she wanted to be on the creative side. And so ultimately, she chose UConn. And we have some family in Connecticut that had a little to do with it. From an education standpoint, I was thrilled. I knew she'd get a great education. And the culture here is supportive and family-oriented. And she, to this day, said it was one of the best decisions she made. So I was thrilled.
So you and your wife started Kit and Pamela Fox Family Foundation. So tell me more about it.
Right. We started a family foundation back right around when I made the gift to UConn. So that was in the late 90s. I can't remember the exact year. And when you start a family foundation, it's important. I had great counsel from some great people to have a focus. So our focus for our foundation is around children's health, pediatric health in particular. My oldest daughter had some problems, and children's education, with my dad's focus. And so we fund two primary programs out of our foundation. One is called the Hendren Project. It's named after the surgeon that helped our daughter. There's 5,800 pediatric surgeons on this website from over 140 countries around the world. And the purpose of the service is to connect surgeons to one another to help each other on the most complicated birth defects in the world. So that's now well over 10 years running, and we're proud of that. And then the other program is Innovation Quest, which started at Cal Poly with my friend Carson. It's alive and well and doing well there, and we have a little friendly competition between them and UConn.
So do you think philanthropy should be priority for everyone based on whatever level people are able to give? And if you think, why?
Yeah, so I'm a Catholic, and I believe in what I was brought up with is everybody was given a God-given talent. So part of your job is to find that talent and use it. You were given a talent, and then philanthropy is time. The most important thing we have in life is our time. Who do we spend time with? How do we spend our time? If I give you my time, that's a gift. If you give me your time, that's a gift. So time, my talent. If I have my talent and I give my time and my talent to you, that's a gift, and vice versa. And then treasure. So if you've been blessed to make some money, that's great, and that's part of that giving. But if you can give your time, your talent, and treasure, terrific. If you can just give your time and talent, that's terrific. So I think people get great reward in life when you can help somebody else. So I get more out of giving and being around the students than they even imagine. It's fun. It's rewarding. So if people haven't experienced that, I'd encourage them to do it,
You have remarkable success story, so nobody's going to question. But I want to thank you for having a great heart or big heart, because that's outside of the boundaries of UConn. What you do for others really matters, because that's the way how we become better people and how we make a better world. And thank you for giving that heart and sharing with all of us, and thank you for talking with me today.
Absolutely.
So
Thanks.
great to have you back at campus, and go Huskies.
Go Huskies. Thank you very much.
Thank you.